In this video, I want to take you through the process of completing the square. Completing the square. When completing the square, we'll be given a quadratic expression, for example, of this type. Then we'll be expressing it in the form k factor of x plus g to the power of 2 plus h, where k, g, and h are constants. So I will take this one as my first method, method 1, the method of completing the square. So we have a few steps that we have to follow. Right, here are the few steps, but before that, if you are new here, please kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel. Right, here are the few steps that we have to follow. Number 1, enclose the terms in x into the brackets. For example, if you are given ax squared plus bx plus c, right, then enclose these two terms in x into the brackets. Then the next step is to make sure that the coefficient of x squared is 1. In other words, we are saying factorize. If it is not 1, factorize the coefficient of x squared there, making sure that it is 1. And in this case, if we take out a, we remain with this whole expression in the brackets like this. Then the next step is to make the expression in the brackets a perfect square by simply adding the square of half of the coefficient of x and subtract it to maintain the original value of the expression. We are saying, in this case, the coefficient of x here is b over a. So we are saying half of b over a is b over 2a. Then you square it. After squaring it, after adding the square of this fraction, then you subtract it so that you will maintain the original value of the expression. If you add a certain value, you have to subtract it so that you won't make any changes to the expression, right? Then the next thing is now to take out the term that we were subtracting. We are taking out the subtracting term b over 2a squared, and we remain with the perfect square in the brackets. The aim of adding half coefficient of x squared here is to make this bracketed expression a perfect square. We want it to be a perfect square so that when we factorize it, it will be x plus something squared in those brackets, right? So it will be the perfect square after taking out this subtracting term, then factorize it, right? But when this one leave the brackets, please note that it must multiply this a, which is outside the brackets. A is multiplying everything in the brackets. This subtracting term is in the brackets, so when it leaves the brackets, it also have to be multiplied by this a, because a is multiplying everything in the brackets. So take note there. Then the last thing is to factorize the expression in the brackets since it is a perfect square, right? Then it will be in the form a factor of x plus b squared, then plus c. Right, let's take this one as our first example. We are going to complete the square step by step, stating the steps in this first example. Right, we want to express this one in the form this one. That's completing the square. So the first step is to enclose the terms in x like this. Then the next step is to make sure that the coefficient of x squared is 1. So in this case, the coefficient of x squared is 1. So we are skipping this step 2. We are going straight to step 3. Right, step 3, we are now taking half of coefficient of x. The coefficient of x in this case is 2, and half of 2 is 1. So we are adding 1 squared, but this one is a new value, so let's subtract it here. So we are subtracting 1 squared. And if we simplify 1 squared minus 1 squared, we get 0. So we've added nothing to this expression. So the value of this expression is maintained. Now, 1 squared is 1. 1 squared is 1. So the next step is now to make sure that this minus 1 leave the brackets. And in this case, it is very easy because there's nothing outside the brackets there. There's 1 outside the brackets. So we are simply taking minus 1 out of the brackets like this. Right. Then after that, we can now factorize this one. This expression in the brackets is now a perfect square. As we'll be factorizing this one, we'll be simplifying 3 minus 1. So if we factorize what is in the brackets here, we get x plus 1 squared. And if we simplify 3 minus 1, we get 2. So this is our final answer. We have completed the square. As simple as this. Right, let's move on to our second example. In this example, we won't be stating the steps as we're doing in our first example. So in this case, we are going to enclose these two terms in x into the brackets like this. Right, then from there, the next step is to make sure that the coefficient of x squared is 1. So let's factorize. Let's take out this 3. It's now 3 factor of x squared plus 4x, then plus 1. Right. Then from here, half the coefficient of x. The coefficient of x in this case is 4. So half the coefficient of x, half of 4 is 2. So we are now adding 2 squared. Then that 2 squared is a new term. This one is a new term. So we have to subtract it so that we maintain the original value of the expression. Right. Then if we simplify, this is 4 minus 4. Right, like this. Then from here, let's now take this minus 4 out of the brackets. Right, as it leaves the brackets, remember we have 3 here, we have 3, which is multiplying everything in the brackets. So as this minus 4 leaves the brackets, it will be multiplied by this 3. So we'll end up having 3 factor of x squared plus 4x plus 2 plus 4 plus 1, then minus 4 by 3. This 4 by 3 is this minus 4, which is leaving the brackets, and as it leaves the brackets, it is being multiplied by this 3. Right, let's simplify. Now, what is in the brackets here is now a perfect square. It is now a perfect square. So let's factorize this perfect square. At the same time, simplifying 3 minus 12 like this. 3 minus 12 is minus 11. Now let's factorize the quadratic expression in the brackets. It is a perfect square. So if you factorize this one, we get x plus 2 squared like this. Right. I want you to take note here. If you look at this expression in the brackets here, this x is this x which we are raising to the power 2 here. This x squared here, we take x only. This 2 squared, we just take plus 2 like this. Okay, so this is our answer. We have completed the square. Right, let's move on to our third example. Right, likewise, we are going to enclose the terms in x into the brackets at the same time, making sure that the coefficient of x squared is 1. So the coefficient of x here is minus 8. Half of that is minus 4. So we are now adding a new term, minus 4 squared. Then we have to subtract it to maintain the original value of the expression. Right. Then from here, let's take this minus 16 out of the brackets, and it will be multiplied by these two like this, and you get minus 32 like this. This one is now a perfect square. So we can now factorize this perfect square. This quadratic expression in these brackets is now a perfect square. So let's factorize it at the same time, simplifying minus 7 minus 32, right? If you look at this again, this x is this x squared. This minus 4 is this minus 4 squared. So in short, we are saying we are simply taking the squared parts. It is x squared and minus 4 squared. So we simply take these squared parts. So it will be x minus 4 squared. Right, let's move on to our fourth example. Right, likewise, we have to make sure that the coefficient of x here, x squared, is 1. Like this, we are taking out 2. Now, the next thing is to find the half, the coefficient of this one, and the half of 3 over 2 is 3 over 4. Then we square it like this. Then from here, we are now taking this term out of the brackets, right, like this. Then we remain with this one. So to avoid confusion, from what we have been seeing in the first 3 examples, to factorize this quadratic expression, this is now a perfect square. That's always the case, that it will be a perfect square if you follow the steps 1 up to the previous step before this one. If you follow them and you do it the right way, you will definitely get a perfect square in the brackets. Right, so from what we have been seeing in the previous examples, it is this x, the squared parts, this x and 3 over 4. So we are just enclosing x and 3 over 4 into the brackets, and we raise it to the power 2 like this. And if we simplify 5 minus 9 over 8, you find 31 over 8. Thank you very much for watching. That's all. I hope this video is helpful. If it is helpful, please subscribe to my YouTube channel.